Hi everyone, it's Tammy with Shabby Fabrics. I'm here today with an amazing tote bag. Look at this cute tote bag. This is by Joyce Minnis. This is the charming 8-pocket tote. You've got pockets on the front. You have a Welt pocket with a zipper. Very cool, very secure to keep my phone in when I'm carrying this, and lots of pockets on the inside as well. So today I'm going to walk you through how to make this tote bag. This is going to be a longer video, so grab a snack or your favorite beverage. The other thing I'm going to have our videographers do for you is they're going to mark chapters in this video. So if you're making your tote bag and you get to the part with the Welt pocket and the zipper and you're like, oh, holy cow, I'm so confused, you can reference this video, go right to the Welt pocket and watch just that section. That's so handy for you. And I know that you guys appreciate that, and that's why we're here, is to make it easy for our customers to create beautiful things. All right? So this is as the name would imply, a charming tote bag. It does use charm packs. I'm going to be using the Garden Fresh collection today. That's what we chose for our sample and all of our stuff that we have done ahead of time. But if you're looking for charm packs, now these charm packs right here are all on our website and they are available right now as a pre-order. So if you like these other collections, go ahead and jump over there and you can just reserve your pre-cuts. That will help. That'll make sure that you do get them. Some of the things that I'm using, one, the pattern, of course. Now the pattern is available. You can buy the pattern. This is also available as a PDF download. So if you have fabric, you have everything you need, and you want to get started right away, you could be making this bag immediately. So jump over to the website, download your PDF pattern, print that out, and you're good to go. All right? The other thing that comes with this are labels. You have 2 pages of labels, and you also have a Welt pocket template. You're definitely going to want to pay attention to these. We do use our labels, and they are very helpful for not getting your pieces turned around. Some of the other things that I will be using today, I'm going to be using some fusible fleece. I love this Cali-Dell interfacing. Look at this. We have this in a 1-yard pre-pack. This is perfect. Shape Flex or the Cali-Dell non-woven lightweight fusible. This is perfect. You need a yard. This is a 1-yard pre-pack right here. Heat and Bond Light. You need a little bit of Heat and Bond Light. Not a lot, just a little bit. But if you don't have any and you need to pick some up, grab just this little pre-pack right here and you'll be good to go. Yes, I have parchment paper on set with me today. Parchment paper is a miracle. When you are fusing these panels to fusible fleece, your glue side is facing up. You put a piece of parchment paper on there and you can iron over the entire thing, and that peels straight off of your parchment paper, leaving no residue. This stuff is amazing. If you don't have a pack of parchment paper, you might want to grab that as well. Some other things on set with me today. I have a Clover hot ruler. I am going to be using that. I am using a Schmetz 90 Super Non-Stick. The reason I went to a heavier needle is because you're sewing through thicknesses and you're going to want to use a beefier needle than you would for, say, paper piecing with a size 70. You're going to want to beef that up a little bit. I did a Super Non-Stick because you are going through fusible fleece. Olfa rotary cutter. I recommend a new blade if you haven't changed your blade lately. Clover Wonder Clips. We're going to use those quite a bit. These are the Clover fine quilting pins. These are longer and more sturdy than the extra fine patchwork pins that you see me use when we're doing patchwork. I'm going to be using these a lot today because they're going to hold multiple layers together. They're very, very nice. I have a Clover seam ripper. We're not going to use that today. I have a micron pen, a sew line pen, a friction pen, a clover point turner, a couple of different pairs of scissors. I need a bigger pair of scissors for grating some seams, the small scissors just at my sewing machine, and a clover size 18 bias tape maker. And I will show you where we use that. All right, so I'm gonna clear this stuff up and let's get started. All right, so here's how we get started. We're gonna take our charm pack and I'm gonna cut my charms. Joyce gives you very good photographs. The pattern is in full color. You divide your charms into 2 stacks. You cut one set one way and one set the other, and then you put your patchwork together. So that is what we have done ahead of time. So you can see this is one way that you're cutting them, a narrow and a wider strip. These are cut directly in half. All right, so I have a tote front top, and you notice that I have labeled these a tote front bottom, front right, and front left. All right, now I did the same thing with the back. Back center, back left, and back right. Okay, perfect. Once we get our patchwork together, you're now going to take your fusible fleece, lay that out, put this onto fusible fleece, fuse it down, and quilt this. It's so much fun quilting. You can use decorative stitches, you can just use straight stitches on here. However you want to quilt it, you go and do that. We just use straight stitches. I figured that was the fastest, easiest way to do it, but whatever you want to do. All right, so it's your choice. All right, so once you get all of these ready to go, keep them labeled. Keep everything labeled. All right, I'm just going to set these aside. All right. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about pockets. And these are going to go on the tote front. So I'm going to work with my tote front, bottom, and top. These 2 pieces right here. Okay? Let me turn my iron on and I'll show you how this works. So we are using the Shape Flex right here. This is the, oh, look at this beautiful fabric. This is my dark coordinate that I have. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over and I'm going to take a strip of my Shape Flex and I'm going to fuse this down 1/4 inch from the top. All right, let's do that. Just even pressure on my iron. I don't need to use steam. It adheres just immediately. It's perfect. All right, we're going to do that to both pieces. All right. Perfect. Now we're going to sew these to this and to this, just like that. All right, but remember, they're quilted, right? Let me show you what that looks like. All right, so let me show you how this works. So this is my tote front top right here. I'm just going to roll this up and use a Wonder Clip here so you can see how we are attaching this. Pocket. All right, and this one, just like that, okay? So Joyce shows you a picture. It looks very much like what you're seeing here. Let me dump some of these out. Sorry for the noise. I'm just going to kind of leave these loose because I'm going to be grabbing these a lot. Okay, there we go. All right, so you can see how these are actually attached. So this is my tote front top, this is my bottom, and we're just going to sew 1/4 inch right there, okay? Now I'm going to press, okay? So on the top one, I'm just going to press this down, just like this, toward the pocket. Perfect. All right, we're just going to set that up here. Now the bottom one, I'm going to press this one also toward the pocket, just like this, up. However, what I'm going to do on this one is I'm going to flip it over, and I'm now going to press this again. I want you to see this. Here's my 1/4 inch. I want to leave a little bit of this showing. So I'm just going to simply fold this even with my pocket, just like this. And I'm going to press it again. Make sure this one is even. I can kind of feel that in there and roll that pocket down a little, just like that. All right, now let's look at the front. Oh, isn't that beautiful? How cool is that? Now we have piping or a pretty trim on the front of our pocket. And turn this one over and you can see that's how we did that right here on this one. Okay? All right, so now I have that, and now I have this pocket. So I need to put these front panels together. All right, so we're simply just going to lay this right on top, matching the top of this with this pocket, just like that. Okay, now I'm going to clip it or pin it on the sides, and I'm going to actually choose to pin this. I'm going to use the fine quilting pins to do this. You see how easily these slide right in there? They're very sharp. Make sure that's perfectly even. Just like this. Perfect. All right, so now you sew 3 inches down. So you can mark that. I like to mark things whenever I'm trying to sew a certain distance. I like to mark that just so I know where am I stopping rather than just guessing. I'm just going to use a ruler really quick and mark that. All right, so I would sew 1/8 of an inch here to here. You can see on the back, all I'm doing is simply stitching this down just about right here, okay? So I'm not doing anything with the bottom of this pocket right now, okay? All right, let's take a look at the next one. All right, so this one I have sewn here, right down, so I can take my pins out. Okay, this is the bottom. We really did use our labels all the time on here. This is just easier so you don't get confused. All right, so now you see how we finished the bottom of this pocket? Let's take a look at that on this one. All right, so you can see how when I just pick this pocket up, they're not together. That's perfect. So I folded this seam down 1/2 inch, covering the raw edge. So all I'm trying to do, remember, is finish the edge of that pocket, right? We just need to close it off so when I put something in it, it doesn't get lost in the whole bag, right? I'm going to fold it one more time, like this. So I'm just putting a little rolled hem in this. Perfect. Just like that. Okay, I can hold this with a pin. All right, and then you can see on this one that we just stitch straight across that. Okay, all right, That finishes our pocket on the inside. Remember, these are going to be caught in your side seams. You don't need to worry about finishing the sides of this. However, I do want a divider in this pocket because you can see how big this pocket is. If you did not want to put a divider in the pocket, don't do the next step. You do not have to put a divider in this unless you really want to. I like to put different things in the outside of my bag so that they're easy to grab. So I did choose to put the divider in there. So right here, let me turn this the right way up. So we just sewed right here, and I just took a friction mark, and you can see my friction line right here where we sewed this in. You can see on the back, here's my stitching. We back stitched at the top. Don't worry about the bottom because you're going to enclose that in your seam. And once you have that on there, just erase your friction mark. See how my thread just basically disappeared. All right, so that's how we're going to assemble this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to put piping on the sides. So that would be added right now. So I'm going to set this one right here. And I'm going to grab my strip. This is my piping strip. And to make piping, you're simply going to fold these edges, wrong sides together, and press. Very simple. Much simpler than if you were making piping like around a cord or something. I've done projects like that. They're challenging. There we go. All right, so we're just going to make a little piece of piping like this. I think Joyce calls this faux piping. I love that. It's a perfect way to add just a little touch of elegance to this bag. And you can see that right here on this bag, how I did that. Right there. Okay. So now to add this, you're going to cut these to 13 inches. Which I have right here. This should be 12 and a half. All right. So this is actually longer. You see that? It's longer than my bag, and that's okay. You're going to just trim it to fit, which is great. I'm actually going to pin this on. I'm not going to trust that I'm going to be able to keep this narrow thing on my bag straight, because now straightness matters, right? So I'm definitely going to pin this just like this. All right, so once I have it pinned, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and you're just going to stitch this down 1/8 of an inch from the edge. Just get it on there. So I put my pins this way so I can start here, and as I go, I'm going to remove my pins, turn it over, and do the same thing this way. All right? Once you have that stitched, then we're going to add our tote front right and left. Okay, so I will see you in a minute. I'm going to go stitch this down, and I'll be right back. Okay, so we've got our piping on here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to trim this excess off at the ends, and I'm just going to use a little pair of scissors. You can use a rotary cutter if you like, but I'm just going to use a little pair of scissors and trim this piping even. Perfect. You're taking off about 1/2 inch or so off of there. Just make sure it's nice and even, just like that. Perfect. All right, so now I'm going to add my tote front right and tote front left onto both my sides. All right, so when I do that, I want to line up my charms, and I know that this one is going to hit in the middle of this piping. It just is. That's where the bottom of this charm is now. It's in the middle of this. This one should line up fairly close though. So let's line up this one first. I'm just going to fold it back so you can see I'm lining up these two seams right here, just like that. So I'm going to line up this one first, The bottom is perfect. You see how the top is a little off? I'm just going to grab a hold of this and I'm just going to pull it a little bit. This is stretchy, right? It's just charm sewn with fusible fleece. You can move this around. Do not panic if it does not match. All right, there we go. See how I just worked that right in? I made that fit even though it didn't want to. Okay, let's do it again over here. All right, so the charms I want to match are right here at the bottom. And I'm just going to line this up. Double check my alignment. That looks good right there. Clip that. Clip the bottom. Bottom looks good. We'll clip that. See the top, how it's short? I'm going to pull on this and I'm going to make it work. And I'm going to clip the top. Okay, so I'm going to pin the top, or clip the top. I'm sorry, I've got clips in my hand, not pins. And then clip this one. Double check it from the front. That looks good. It's right in the middle. This one matches. Let's check this side. Yep, that's in the middle. And this one matches. Okay, so now we're ready to sew that. You're going to definitely want to sew that from this side, from the pocket side. Don't try to turn this over and sew it from this side. You've got way too much going on here. This is the side we want to sew that from, okay? So once we get that sewed, it's going to look like this. All right? So now I'm going to press this towards the center, not towards the pocket, towards the center. All right? So when I do that, we're going to do it on the back. And Joyce says to use a pressing cloth if you're afraid that that fusible fleece is going to leave a residue on your iron. I'm not worried about that. I don't have my iron turned on high. My iron is more on medium temp, not on high. So I'm not really melting that fusible fleece. Okay, we're going to press it like that. All right, and then we turn it to the front, and then I'm top stitching this piping down right here. You see how that works? So it lays perfectly flat and even, and we just top stitch that with the blue thread. Okay, now this is my tote front. So let me take a label off of this. All right, you are complete. So our pocket is in. Whoops, we have a big blue thread here. Our pocket is in. Everything looks good here. Okay, so now I'm going to set this aside. This is in the good pile, right? We're going to save this. So let me get rid of all of this. Now let's look at the tote back. All right, so now this is where I'm going to put in a welt pocket. Let me sort this out a little bit here. I don't want to get confused. Okay, thank goodness I have labels, right? Okay, so I'm going to take my tote back center. This is the only piece that I'm going to work with. Only remember, mine is quilted already, right? Yours should be quilted at this point as well. You've quilted it on fusible fleece. You've trimmed it out. You're ready to proceed, okay? All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to refer you. Remember I told you that template was in your pattern. It looks like this. Welt Pocket Guide. So she wants you to take this interfacing and cut a 2.5 by 9-inch strip, and you simply lay it on top, and this is where the micron pen comes in. This, do not trace this with a friction pen because we're going to fuse this now to our pocket. If you fuse this to the pocket and you trace this with a friction pen, you're going to have to peel it off of there and retrace it with a micron pen, all right, because you'll take all your marks off. So you can see all of the marks that we transferred. We did these lines here and all of these lines, and she tells you to do that, all right? So we have everything traced, all right? So I can set my guide aside, and we're going to take a pocket. In the pattern, she gives you instructions on where you're putting this, but you see how we've drawn our lines in here? You're marking center of your pocket. Here's your marking so far down, and this is where we fuse this. All right? Okay. And once we fuse this, now we get to have fun. Now we're going to put it on our tote bag, and you sew on this solid line all the way around. Okay? I used a little bit of a shortened stitch length on that. I didn't use a long stitch. I shortened my stitch length. It's a little tighter stitch. Just because you want your stitches a little bit smaller there, I want these corners nice and sharp. All right? So after you stitch that, this is what this looks like. All right? So you can see already, we have to cut this out. Right? I have to cut this part out. Let me move this pressing mat out of my way. All right, so what I did was I took a rotary cutter and cut those 2 lines. That was the easy part, right? Now I'm going to take these heavier scissors, Karen K. Buckley scissors, and I'm going to continue cutting this out exactly on my marks. I'm going to leave this little triangle tab attached. I'm not touching that. All I'm doing is cutting on the dashed lines. Okay? All right, let's do that. All right, you can see how I trimmed right on the dashed lines. I left my triangle and I left these flaps attached. Got a little fussiness there. There we go. All right, so you can see how I did that. All right, so now my tote bag, here we go. The pocket now goes through the opening. The whole pocket goes all the way through there. Pull it to the back. Get the top in there. This is what this looks like. If yours looks like this, good job, you did it right. You did good. All right. Now, we're going to look at this pocket. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm looking at my points right here, and they look really good. They're not real puckery. If they're puckery, sometimes you can just fuss them out a little bit like this. Yep, I can make that work. That works good. This one looks good. This one looks good. Okay, so let's go ahead and press just those corners. All right. This is the easy way to do a welt pocket. That little guide, that's key. This is gold right here. Don't lose that. All right, it's brilliant the way we do this. All right, you ready? We're just gonna use the tip of my iron, and all I'm doing is I'm ironing those points. Those 4 corners are getting pressed right now. That's all I'm gonna press. Corner. And the last one. I'm going to straighten that out before I put an iron on it. There we go. All right, let's look at that from the front. Oh yeah, see, that looks good. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's perfect. All right, now, how do I get that little bit? Let me turn this over so you can see what we're trying to do. Right here, how do I get this welt pocket in there? Well, do you remember how we folded the other pocket to make this front piece right here? We just folded it over the seam allowance and it was perfect. Ha, I'm going to do the same thing all over again. So you see this part of this seam allowance, right, that we left in there. I am simply going to put this up. I'm going to fold this directly on top of that seam allowance, just like that. Now what happens right here? What happens right here is this creates a pleat. Do you see the pleat? It's like 1/4 of an inch wide. It's a pleat right here. That's okay. That's perfect. That's exactly what I want it to do. So I'm going to press this. I just work my iron along. I come to the other side. I'm just going to pleat that just so it'll lay flat. All I want it to do is lay flat. There we go. All right, so you see how I press that? Look at that on the front. It's perfect. I love that. All right, so this one, exact same thing. Here's my seam allowance. I'm just going to fold this right over my seam allowance, just like that. Make my pleat. That is perfect. And make a pleat on the other side. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and press this in. This is where I want this. All right, so you can use a little bit of steam here. Steam is your friend on the back, no problem. All right, let's look at this from the front. Look how nice that looks. I love that. Looks good to me. Now you see the slight opening that's still there? That's for your zipper, all right? So let's take a look at that. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch this to hold this welt in place. All right, so to top stitch this, I'm going to stitch in the ditch all the way along here, straight down, all the way along the bottom, and straight back up again. Okay, that's how I'm going to top stitch this. Okay, get that fussed in there. Okay, so let's go do that. All right, so I'm going to try to stay in the ditch, and I'm going to try to stay off of my blue because, and I'm using silver thread, and that's so you can see where I'm stitching. Normally I would use thread that would blend into this, so you can't see your stitches, but I want you to see my stitches, so I'm going to use silver. All right, so you can see how I stitched this on here. You can see from the back how I stitched that. And I just left my pleats right there, stitched right over them, okay? All right, so now we're ready for the zipper. So I decided to do something kind of fun with this zipper. I decided to use a teal zipper pull and a navy blue zipper. This is just a handbag zipper. And you are simply going to insert it into the opening just like this. This is so easy. It's such an easy way to do a zipper. I was nervous when I saw the zipper on this bag. I thought, oh boy, I don't know if I'm comfortable doing that. Well, trust me, this is easy. You can do this. Just like that. Look how cool that is, yeah? Your zipper's right in the middle of there. Takes up that perfect opening just like that. So now we're going to stitch our zipper in, right? Let me go ahead and just pin that so I can pick it up. Let me put a pin in that. So you're going to stitch right on the same stitch line that you just did. You're going to go all the way around it, moving your zipper pull as necessary, and then trim your zipper to fit. Let me grab that before I unzip it. There we go. So I'm just going to pin this zipper in there so it hangs onto it. You could use glue if you wanted to make sure that the zipper stayed right here. If you're not comfortable just putting a couple of pins in it and taking it to your machine, you could also use a little piece of that Heat and Bond Light. Remember I told you you might need a little bit of that? This would be a great place for that. Just take a little strip of Heat and Bond Light and put on there, fuse that zipper right down, you're good to go. It's not going anywhere, all right? So we'd stitch the zipper in, and when I come back, I'm going to show you how to finish that pocket on the inside. Okay, so let's trim our threads so you can see that silver thread right where I stitched again. Now, if you had dark blue thread that matched, you would never see your stitching. You can see on this one, I use this dark teal thread. You can't even see my stitches on here. It looks like it just is there, which is that's what I wanted. Okay, so my zipper is good to go. It's nice and secure. It's not going anywhere. So now you could trim your zipper. If you need to trim it, you can trim it. If you use a zipper that's longer, you can definitely trim it now. If you use zipper tape, whatever you're using, you can definitely do that here. Now, let's finish the inside of this pocket. Okay, so I'm going to fold up my hem 1/2 inch, right sides together. Just like that. And turn it again to make kind of a rolled hem. Remember how we did on the other pocket? We did a rolled hem. Same thing. And now I'm just going to open my rolled hem up and insert this into here like this and fold it over just to enclose that edge, just like that. You can clip it or pin it, doesn't matter. I'm just pinning the top of this pocket right here. Okay, I need to seal this so that it doesn't, when I put something in there, it doesn't fly away, right? Get lost in the whole bag. All right, so we're just going to top stitch this right across the top. And then we're going to stitch the sides of our pocket. And that's just the pocket, right? I'm not sewing it to the bag. All I want to do is sew this across the top. I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to sew all along the sides, right? Let's go ahead and just press this flat. So I have a pressed hem to look at. There we go. All right, there we go. Then I'm going to stitch on the sides, same thing, all the way along. Now the inside of a pocket, let's talk about that. Joyce says that you can finish this multiple ways. You can just stitch it, right? No problem. Or you can zigzag these edges if you want to. It's entirely up to you. I am just simply going to stitch this. I'm not going to zigzag the edges, but you can if you like. If you want to finish that like that, you go right ahead. That choice is yours. Okay, just like that. So I'm going to go across the top and down both sides. All right, so I'm going to go do that, and when I come back, we'll do one more thing to this pocket, and then we'll be ready to assemble the front. All right, so I've got all of my pockets sewed together. Like I said, I just stitched 1/4 inch either side, top, no problem. I'm going to turn this back over to the front. Now I need to top stitch one more time along the top of this piping, or along the top of this welt pocket. The reason I'm doing that is so that this stays where it's supposed to, right? The top of the bag, the top of this pocket stays secure, all right? So we're just going to top stitch that one more time. All right? All right, so then, just like we made the front, we're going to take our piping. We're going to add our piping to either side, our faux piping, and then we're going to add these. I have my tote back left and tote back right. These are going to get added on like this and like this. Stitch, press to the inside again, flip this over, and top stitch your piping, all right? So when we get that done, set that aside. This is what this looks like. Okay, we did that ahead of time, and you can see how we did this with blue thread, so you cannot see my stitching on this. We top stitched our piping down with blue thread. I want to show you this. I had one of my gals help me do video prep, and she did zigzag this on this corner like that. All right, here's where she top stitched the pocket right here so that it stayed where we wanted it to stay. All right, okay, so now when I get it to this point, we're ready to add the bag bottom. Okay, so I'm going to set this to the side, and when I come back, I'm going to show you how she makes the bag bottom. Okay, so to make the bag bottom, I have 2 pieces of fusible fleece cut for my bag bottom right here. All right, and I have this, my remaining 10 by 24 piece for my bag bottom. All right, okay, so I'm going to iron my creases out of this fabric a little bit. Had it folded on a board so it kind of gets creased. All right, here we go. Turn this wrong side up, just like this. I have never made a bag bottom like this. This is brilliant. This is Joyce's brilliance here. It's so simple. This goes up. I'm going to take my fusible fleece, and you can feel one side has got the fusible, one side does not. One piece goes down. So my fusible side is to the fabric, okay? This side, my fusible, is facing up towards me, okay? There we go. All right. Now, I'm going to simply fold this over, just like this, and I'm going to fuse this, just like this. Use a little bit of steam, because I want that to grab really quick here. Perfect. Let's do the other side. Same way. This goes over like this. Just making sure I don't have a wrinkle in the middle of my fleece. There we go. Everybody's nice and flat. Go ahead and fuse it down. Fuse it together. All right. Now I'm just going to fold these over, just kind of like a present, right? Just like that. Ha, perfect. All right, now you see the inside, and you're probably thinking, that looks terrible. Nobody's ever gonna see it. This is gonna be between the lining and the bottom of the bag. No one will ever see this part right here, ever. They'll never know about it unless you tell them, right? Don't tell them. There we go. You fold that right over. Now you see I have fusible fleece in the center. That glue is that side up. I'm not putting my iron there. I'm being very careful. All right, I'm going to turn this over. Look how cool that is. It's perfect. Let's go ahead and fuse that fleece down. Make sure that glue sticks on this side too. All right, my bag bottom is almost complete. Now I'm going to top stitch all the way around, 1/4 of an inch. All right, yep, I did that ahead of time, just like that. All right, now I'm going to take a white sew-line pencil. This is important because my bottom is dark. I need these marks to show up. So now we're going to mark 1/4 of an inch on each side. So I need to mark my 1/4 of an inch. So I am moving my ruler. I'm going to use this 1/4 inch mark right here. I'm just going to use my white pencil and go. Then I'm going to go this way. And this side over here, exactly the same thing, 1/4 of an inch. Okay, let's mark this side. Okay, and 1/4 inch this way. all the way around, I'm marking 1/4 inch. There we go. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is I'm going to mark the very center of this. So I'm going to fold this right sides together. Ooh, I'm going to pinch that pretty good. And I'm going to mark center on the back side. Let's do it again. I'm marking this on the back side of this because I need to see where these are. So you're going to be matching centers, right? When you put a bag bottom on, you need to mark your centers so that you can line them up with the center of the tote bag. We're going to mark that next. All right, there we go. All right, so I have my centers are marked, my corners are marked, both sides, all the way around. All right, we're going to take our bag bottom right here, and we're going to mark. I'm sorry, this is not the bag bottom. This is the bag bottom. This is the tote bag back of the tote bag. All right, so I'm now going to mark the center of this. So I'm going to pinch this, and I'm actually going to grab a friction pen because I have fleece here, and I need to mark that right there. Okay? All right. So let me show you how she does this. I'm going to take my tote bag bottom, and it's right sides together, right? This is the right side. This is the right side. That's why I repeat things to myself. Right sides together, Tammy. All right, I'm going to pin this. There it is right there. I'm matching my centers, are matched. That's where you're going to start. Start with your center. There we go. Pin to the side. I'm going to put one more pin in this just for the heck of it right here on this corner because I want to hold that seam allowance down, and I'm going to turn this over and show you exactly what I'm talking about. You see this seam allowance right here? I want that to stay like that. We press those in for a reason. I need those to stay just like that. Okay. Here, and one more time on this seam allowance over here. I'm going to pin that. All right. Now remember how we marked 1/4 inch on each side. So I'm going to start at this 1/4 inch, back tack, come in and back tack, and sew all the way along to this 1/4 inch, back tack, and cut my thread. All right? So I will do that right now. I'll see you at the machine. All right, are you with me so far? All right, here we are. You can see my bag is attached. My bag bottom's attached to the back of my tote bag, just like that. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my side seams. So I need to put right sides together and stitch right here. So I'm going to fold that bag bottom inside so that it doesn't get caught. All right. One thing that Joyce does is she tapers these side seams, and I'm going to show you how to do that really quick. I'm going to use a Creative Grids ruler and a friction pen. She's going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance, so I'm going to use a friction pen, and I'm going to make a mark at 1/2 inch at the top, and at the bottom she's coming in 5/8 of an inch. So I'm just going to slide my ruler over, so I have 5/8 of an inch here. I have a 1/2 inch still at the top, and I'm just going to draw my line. This is my sewing line. I'm going to draw the line that I'm going to sew on. All right, let's do the same thing over here. Remember, this is the bottom of the bag now, so I'm going to measure in 5/8 of an inch. Mark this. Move my ruler to a 1/2 an inch. Because now I'm doing this backwards, right? This is the bottom of my bag. Let's double check that. Yep, this is the bottom of my bag. That's what I want to do. 5/8 is at the bottom, 1/2 inch is at the top. Draw your line. Just like that. Okay. Perfect. All right, now I'm going to put these two sides together. And now I'm going to match my charms. So I'm going to match this seam to this seam. And I'm just going to visually do that. I'm not going to get real crazy with it. I'm going to try to keep my edges as even as possible though. I'm going to use a pin here. You can use a Wonder Clip if you'd prefer. That's always a good option. All right, I like that. All right, I'm going to pin the other side and I'm going to go to the sewing machine and sew on these lines. So when I come back, I'm going to have those side seams done. All right, I'll see you in a minute. All right, so I'm going to press my seams open. So to do that, I'm just going to fold this tote in half like this. I'm going to open this up and press. Just like this. All right, turn it straight over. Do the same thing. Right open. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch on either side of this seam just to seal this down and just to hang on to this, just to stabilize that side seam, all right? It also helps it stand up a little bit better. You can see on these sides how this stands up nice and straight. And by reinforcing that seam allowance and making it stay there, that definitely reinforces that side seam and helps give this bag stability on the sides. So I'm going to go ahead and go do that. When I come back, I'm going to take you to the next step. All right, so now I'm just going to trim my threads a little bit here. All right, so you can see I just used silver thread, right? Remember I told you I was using silver thread mainly so you can see what I'm doing. So I just sewed a 1/4 inch on either side of my seam allowance. I'm going to turn this right side out so you can see it. There we go. All right, I'm going to set this aside and now we're going to make banding that's going to cover those stitches up. All right, here's how I'm going to make banding. I have a 1 1/4 by width fabric strip. Only mine's not with the fabric because I'm just going to use a 1/2 strip to show you how to do this. I'm going to use my bias tape maker and I'm going to insert one edge into this bias tape maker like this. This is a size 18. It goes so far and then it stops. So I'm just going to take a pin in the center and just push it out. Here we go. There it is. That's what I'm looking for. All right, so I just want to fold each edge up on each side. The edges are not going to meet in the middle. I'm going to tell you that right now. So this is correct. What you're seeing me do is the way this works. You just follow that iron right along with that bias tape maker. You see that? This is exactly what I want this to look like. I'm definitely using the handle to pull it by because this bias tape maker gets hot. I have an iron right next to this metal. Metal conducts heat. It gets very hot very quickly. Use the little handle just like that. Okay, that was really quick. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little piece of Heat and Bond Light and I've just cut a 1/2 inch strip. You set this on here in the middle and I'm just going to fuse this down. Just like that. Okay. All right. So I have a big chunk of this. Got my little sticker on it so I know what it is. All right, here's my side banding. So now I'm just going to take this Heat and Bond Light. I'm just going to peel these strips right off of here. See that? These come right off. Peel your paper. All right, now I have fusible on the back of this. Now I'm going to apply that fusible right directly to this bag. So I'm looking at the seam I'm going to put it on, and I have this laying flat right now on my mat. You see my fusibles on there? I'm going to turn it like this. Perfect. Set it right where I want it. I'm going to grab my iron and fuse this down. This is the easiest way that Joyce does this. It's using the heat and bond light on here is brilliant. Then you're not trying to fight this and do it freehand. I know I couldn't get that straight. I know I couldn't do that if I were just doing this. Trim it, flip your bag over, and do it again. Just like that. I'm completely covering all those seams that I sewed. All that stitching's being completely covered up. Just like that. Perfect. Trim it even. All right. Now, like we would do with an applique, right? We're going to take this pretty blue thread and top stitch this 1/8 of an inch from either edge. All right. So I'm going to continue attaching the bottom of my bag now. All right. So I'm going to turn this back because I need to again. There it is. Right sides together, remember? Okay, so let's mark the center of this bag. The front. I didn't do that before I started. Just going to pinch that and grab it with a friction pin. Right here is my center of this bag. Here's my bottom. So I'm going to match my center of my bottom to the center of this right here and pin. Perfect. All right, remember that 1/4 inch stop we have on the corner? We have another one on this side, so it's exactly like we did when we put the back on, the back of the tote bag. When we stitched it there, we stopped and started at our 1/4 inch. We're going to do exactly the same thing on the front. Okay, I'm going to put this last pin in, and I will see you at the sewing machine. All right, so we have the back of the bag and the front of the bag both attached. Now I need to do my sides. So what I'm going to do, remember how we marked the center on this? I'm going to center that on my banding right there, and I can see my side seam allowance right here. So I know exactly where the center of the side of this bag is. I'm going to pin this in place. I don't want that to move. All right, so now when you look at this corner, you can see how this is rounded. So the way we handle that is we're going to take a pair of scissors and I'm going to clip just the seam allowance, all right, of my fleece so that it will lay flat. In fact, let's do this from this side. Yep, we're going to do it from this side because it's so much easier for you to see. Let me repin my pin here. There we go. All right, so you can see how this is curved. This is a curve right here, and Joyce talks about this. So I'm going to go to my 1/4 inch. I can see where that is, and I'm going to clip that so that this fleece will now pull to the corner like this and lay flat. All right? I'm going to put a pin in this. Here. All right, so you see how I clip that? Let me clip the other one. Let's do it again. All right, so I'm going to take my scissors in from the top, just the polar fleece. Oh, get out of there, my little bag bottom wants to creep in there. Okay, I'm only clipping the bag and the fleece right there. See, I just clipped that right to the stitching. All right, so now this fleece will now pull to the corner and lay perfectly flat. You see that? Let's put a pin there. All right, so again, I'm going to start a 1/4 inch, sew all the way down, and end. All right? I'm going to go ahead and pin the other one. Where'd he go? So that I can sew these both at the same time while I'm at the sewing machine. Oh, I will see you there. All right, so on this end, I'm going to start at the end and I'm going to sew all the way to the other one. I'm going to back tack this. All right, so I have my corners all done. I'm going to go ahead and turn this bag right side out, and we're going to take a look at this. Oh, look at that. That corner looks perfect. See that? Those corners look great. Let's do this one. Yep, it's exactly what I want it to look like. Perfect. All right. Wonderful. All right, our tote bag is done. Now I'm going to do the lining, and we'll insert it, stitch it around, and we will put some binding on and be completely done with this tote bag. All right, so I'm going to grab my lining, and I'll see you back here in just a minute. All right, I'm back. Remember I said I was going to move to the lining, but then I remembered I forgot to do the handles. We have to have handles on a tote bag. How am I going to carry this thing, right? So let's do handles first. All right, Joyce does handles. They're very different. I love the way she has enclosed this like that. So I'm going to show you exactly how she did this. All right, so we start with a 4-inch piece of fabric and 2 1.5-inch strips of fleece. Now, this says 24 to 27 inches. The reason for the difference in length is you can now customize your handle to however long you want it. This length works for me very, very well. This is a 24-inch length, and I like to throw something over my shoulder like this. This length works perfect for me. However, if you're taller or you want a longer handle on it, you're going to need to lengthen that right now. Okay, so that's why there's a variation in your width here. Okay, so we're going to start with that. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use a hot ruler by Clover, and I'm going to turn a 1/2 inch up on one long edge all the way along, just like this. This hot ruler is amazing. You put an iron on it, it doesn't melt it. This thing is very cool. All right, so once I have that done, now I'm going to take my fusible fleece. And you remember how we did the bag bottom, right? So I'm going to identify, this is the rough side. This side goes down. This side is rough. This side goes up. Just like that. Okay. Now I'm going to start at this end right here, and I'm going to fold this over, and I'm going to begin fusing. And I'm being very careful not to touch this iron to that fusible fleece because there's glue on that, right? So I'm going to turn my folded edge over like this and go on down the line. Just like this. Work my way all the way down this handle. Just like that. When you get it done, flip it over. Press it from the other side. And you have a handle just like that. Isn't that clever? I love that. All right, so when we get done with that, I have one I did ahead of time to show you. We top stitch the center to keep that edge down right here. So I did that with matching thread and then also sewed 1/8 of an inch from each end. So it looks like this. All right, now the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the center of this. And I'm just gonna crease this. And again, I'm gonna use my white pencil because I need to see these marks. And I'm gonna mark just like this. Now I'm gonna mark 4 inches on either side. So I have a 4.5 inch ruler. So I'm gonna measure 4 inches this way. Turn this over, so I put my 1/2 inch mark right here on my line and run 4 inches onto this side. Perfect. All right, the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fold this in half, and notice I'm starting in the center. I'm gonna match these 2 marks together, and I'm gonna put a wonder clip on that. I'm gonna move down a little bit, wonder clip it again. You know how you can't use too many pins? Yeah, you can't use too many wonder clips. There's no such thing. All right, so now when I get to the end, I'm gonna match these, but then I'm gonna make a little mark just so I know, stop sewing here. Because if I don't make a mark, I tend to just keep on going, right? There we go. All right, so before I do that end, I'm just gonna work my way back up to it, just like this. And then one more. All right, now I would take this to the machine. Right here's where I'm gonna start sewing. I take this to the machine, and Joyce says you can either machine stitch it or hand stitch it. I definitely machine stitch this. I did not even want to mess with a hand needle and thread at this point. That's not a Tammy thing. Tammy likes the machine, not the hand stitching on stuff like this. So I start right here, back stitch to secure your stitch, and stitch all the way to your other mark. To right here. You can see we did that with matching thread, just like that. Do that twice. Make sure that the inside is where we top stitch that fold. So the outside that you're gonna see, like this, the good side, does not have that top stitch fold in it. That's on this inside right here. Okay? All right, and we're gonna make 2 handles. So let's go ahead and attach those to our bag. All right, I'm gonna measure over 1 1/4 inches from this faux piping here. So I'm gonna put 1 1/4 inches right there. I'm gonna take my handle, and it's gonna go this way. So I have the wrong side facing up, right here. And I can just clip that in place really quick, not worry about a pin. Come over to the other side, measure 1 1/4 inches. Make sure your handle's not twisted at this point. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna trim off that excess fusible fleece. There we go. I don't want that on there. There we go, just like that. And wonder clip that on. Oh. I'm gonna turn my wonder clips over. I like to keep that flat side toward my sewing machine so that they move along the bed of my sewing machine. I don't think I need this anymore. All right, so I would take this to the machine, stitch this 1/8 of an inch from the top, and make sure to secure that. All right, this is what we chose for our lining. Isn't that beautiful? I love this print. All right, so we have some markings on here with a friction pen, and I'm going to explain what we did. The first mark is 4.5 inches up from the bottom. Correct. Don't look at the black numbers, look at the white numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. It's 4.5 inches up. We have marked the center at the bottom. This is a center mark. This is center top. And we just mark that all the way across. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to mark the other one the same way. And I have done that. All right, I'm going to set these aside for a second. So we're going to make 2 pockets. How cute is that? So what we did is we took leftover charms. We had our charm blocks left over. I had 2. And here's how we did that. We have them pieced together. We're going to fuse them to fusible fleece, just like this. Fuse this on. Put this right side together with a piece of the lining. And then we're going to stitch on all 3 corners, all 3 sides. And we're going to turn it. So we've done that with this one. So I'm going to clip my corners. Just like that. That's going to help them be more sharp. I like a sharper corner. And I know I have a clover turn it all here. Clover point turner. So I'm going to flip this over. And push that corner right out. Do the same on this side. Just like that. All right. We're going to take our iron. I'm just going to make sure this seam is nice and flat. Kind of roll it side to side and press. Just like that, all the way around. Okay, there we go. So we have this pocket right here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to top stitch right along the top edge of this pocket. And that's just going to make that lining stay where you want it to stay and give you a nice finished edge across the top. All right, now we're ready to attach our pockets to our lining. All right, so let's look at that. So in the pattern, Joyce says that you draw your friction line, and then we're going to place our pocket 1/4 inch above the friction line, making sure you have a center mark. Well, I found it easier to take a friction pen and draw a second line 1/4 inch above that. So now I can place my pocket directly on the line, right? See, so it's a good thing you're watching this video. You just got an insider tip on how to do this easier. Right there. So now I just move this up, match my center. Now notice I have my raw edges all right here. My finished edge is right here. So I'm going to sew this and flip it up just like this. All right. So I'm lining this up. This one I am going to have to use a pin on. There we go. Pin this side. Here. And one more time here. All right, so I'm ready to sew at 1/4 inch. All right, I'm going to pin this one and go do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so when I start this pocket, I'm going to come on, and I'm definitely going to back stitch that right there. I'm just using the edge of my foot to show me where a 1/4 inch is, because I know I need to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance right here. Okay, so let's cut our threads and get our pins out, and then we are going to press our pockets. Get my pressing mat. So I'm going to heat this seam up a little bit and then press it straight up, just like that. Great. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to stitch my side seam right here. Yeah, you can do a side seam. You can stitch it across the bottom if you like and back up the other side seam. I'm just going to do the side seams because I have silver thread on. Remember, I don't have the dark blue thread. So I'm just going to back tack and sew to here. All right. So I'm going to put a little pin in this just to hang on to this right here. And another one on this side. All right, let me go ahead and do this one at the same time. Save myself a little bit of time. Go ahead and take these side friction marks off. I don't need them anymore. All right, you see how high this pocket came up? That's correct. That is correct. So again, same thing on this pocket. At the top, down to the bottom. Now, if you want to add dividers in these pockets, this would be the time to do it. So if you want to add dividers here, you would add a divider here, maybe here, maybe here. However you want to do that, you could leave this one completely open. Joyce said that a magazine will fit in here, or maybe a large pattern will fit in here. I did leave mine open on this bag. Let's take a look. Yep, I left mine completely open so I could do that. These pockets here, I put 1, 2, 3, I made 4 pockets. So I did top stitch 3 times in there. All right, so you can top stitch to your heart's content in here and put as many dividers in there as you like. I'm just going to sew these pockets and then make this lining and get it inside this bag. All right, so I have my large pocket is sewn on. This pocket is sewn on, and I didn't put dividers in, but if you would like to put dividers in, put in as many as you like. Now we're ready for the next step. So I'm going to turn this over, right sides together. Do you remember how we did our grading on our seam allowance? We started a 1/2 inch at the top and go to 5/8 at the bottom. Exactly the same thing as before. So I'm going to go ahead and do these side seams. And this is fairly thin fabric, so I'm just going to go ahead and pin this. And then I'm going to go to the machine and sew this right on the line. Remember to back stitch at the beginning and at the end, because you're going to put a little bit of pressure on this seam allowance, and I don't want it to just pop apart. Okay, here we go. I'm going to do my back stitch and sew carefully on the line. All right, so I have my side seams in. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press these open. So I'm just going to fold this directly in half like this. Open this seam and run my iron right in the middle. Beautiful. The same thing on this side. All right, now remember how we top stitched that side seam on our bag to help give this stability? We're going to do exactly the same thing on this. So I'll see you in just a minute. All right, so I have my side seams are now stitched down. You can see that definitely gives it a little bit of stability there. Okay, so now I'm going to take this right sides together at the bottom. Double check that you're sewing the bottom. See, this is the top. That's why I said double check, always double check. I'm going to match my centers, which we had marked. Pins will work good here. I just fold that seam allowance right in half and pin it. I'm just folding this right where it's seamed together, and I'm going to pin that, just like that. One more pin. All right, I'm going to sew 1/4 inch across the bottom, back tacking on both sides. When I come back, I'll press this open and we're going to box the corners. All right, so let's get the pins out, and I'm going to press this seam open. All right, to do that, I'm just going to turn this back, turn it upside down, start in one corner, open your seam, just like that. Follow all the way up as far as you can, and then turn the bag over and do the same from the other side. There we go. All right, there we go. All right, so we have our seam open. Now I'm going to box the corners. All right, so I have another one that I'm going to show you how to do that on. All right, this one we did ahead of time. This one we actually put our dividers in our pockets. So you can see I have exactly the same thing. This is my big pocket. These are my little ones. You can see on the back what we did. All right, so what I've done is I have flattened this out to show you how to box a corner. I'm going to fold this like this, and I'm lining up all of these edges. Lining up my seams. I can feel my seams are nesting. This seam here is lined up with this seam right here. Okay, and we drew a line with a friction pin, 3 inches up and 3 inches over. So I'm just going to use the 3-inch mark here and see how 3 inches starts here in the center. 1, 2, 3. Look at this, 4, 5, 6 right here. So I have this set right. And then I'm also 1, 2, 3 inches from this tip. Draw your line with your friction pen and sew on the line. All right, repeat on the other side. And see, we did that. Okay. Now we are ready to trim that. I like to trim these at 1/2 inch rather than at 1/4. I don't want to cut that seam too narrow. So we're going to trim this at 1/2 inch, just like that. And trim this one at 1/2 inch, just like that. Okay? All right. Now, we need to press this towards the bag, towards the side. I put it like this, I fold it, and press. Because I need to press it towards the side. I'm laying it flat. I'm just going to fold this over right on my stitch line and press. Just like that. There we go. All right. Guess what? We're ready to put it inside the bag now. So we're going to take this. We're going to put wrong sides together. Insert it straight in here. Just like this. I'm going to get this all the way in here, all the way around. All the way around. Just like that. All right. So now we're just going to sew all the way around this bag, and we're going to put our binding on it. Oh, this bag is so cute. All right, so I'm going to show you like this so you can see that we sewed this. So we are sewing this binding on with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. When I sewed that on with 3/8 inch seam allowance on this bag, it was difficult to turn this binding to the back and actually machine stitch it down, which is what I did do. Trying to machine stitch down binding that you have sewn on with a 3/8 inch seam allowance, this does not want to fold over enough to get that. If you want to hand stitch it, you're fine. Otherwise, you need to grade this seam allowance. And so what we did was we trimmed it all the way around with a pair of Karen K. Buckley scissors. We trimmed this seam allowance to 1/4 inch. You see that? All the way around. Okay, so now I'm just going to take my iron and press. I'm going to press my binding up, just like this. Okay, and now I'm just going to take my Wonder Clips, I'll dump these out, and actually Wonder Clip this so that I can stitch it all the way around. All right, there we go. I've got it all Wonder Clipped and ready to stitch down. I would now top stitch this with dark blue thread, top and bobbin, and stitch right here in the ditch, right along here. And I know that I'm going to cover that and hit this on the other side because this flap, I'll unclip that. You can see where we sewed that on. This flap covers that. You see that? It covers the stitching. As long as your flap covers the stitching, you will hit that flap when you sew around it on the other side. All right, and I can show you that on this one, right here. You see how my stitching is covered? Right here. You see that? So I just put that down with a Wonder Clip, and I sewed that from this side. There's my line of stitching right here, right in the ditch, and it hit the back of that binding. All right? Okay. That is the charming 8-pocket tote bag. How cute is that? And there really are 8 pockets. I had to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 pockets on it. That's why Joyce called this the charming 8-pocket tote bag. Thank you so much for joining me. I know this has been a much longer video. Remember, there's chapters so that if you're making your bag, you can just go back and just click on a certain chapter and see again exactly how I did something so you don't have to remember it all at once. If this is the very first tote bag that you're making, I recommend you make a jelly roll tote. Go to our YouTube channel, put in jelly roll tote, and make a jelly roll tote bag first to try to get a little bag making experience. This is a more advanced bag. You saw all the different finishes that Joyce does. They're professional looking finishes. I mean, you cannot deny how beautiful this bag is with all of the different finishes, but it does take a lot of extra work and a lot of extra time. So it's well worth it. It's beautiful, and I'm going to be proud to carry it. So thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time on a Shabby Fabrics tutorial.